to reach out to you in all their needs and help them to lead others to you through their example. Bring them health in body and spirit. They may serve you with all their strength. Touch gently their lives, which you have created now forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Allen.
Here.
Mr. Pelisi.
Here.
Mr. Ryder.
Here.
Ms. Bailey, absent. Mrs. Katz, absent. And Mr. Yoder.
Here. We have a quorum. Another member joining us today. Item 3, approval city council meeting minutes for June 9th, 2022. Is there a motion and a second? Second. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion or comments on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Frank on the motion to approve, please.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Ryder.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Item 4, living courtesy of the floor. We've had no requests tonight. We're going to jump around just a little bit. Is Mr. R with us? Yes. Okay. We're going to jump down to item 10, certificate of appropriateness for 427 West 3rd Street. Is there a motion and a second to open discussion? We have a motion. Second. Motion and a second. Mr. Nar, you're with us via Zoom tonight. Good evening, sir. I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. Yes. Good. How are you, President Yoder?
Wonderful.
What we bring before you tonight is a request for a certificate of appropriateness. The location is 427 West 3rd Street. It is currently located in the Central Business District, which requires under ordinance to go before a review for the design standards. And in doing so, it also is required to go before planning. However, at this point in time, because it's exposed, they requested to skip planning, and we brought it before council without being reviewed by planning. And what you have before you is obviously pictures of the building showing that it has been taken off and exposed. What they are requesting to do is replace that with a burgundy metal siding. And at this point, like, I can answer any questions at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nar. We have Mr. Joe Martin here from the team working on the building as well for any questions from members of council. Are there any initial questions here for members of council like this?
Yeah, had a little bit of discussion about this. I did with Mr. Nar previous to the meeting. So, Mr. Nar, would you run us through the ordinance for the Central Business District
Okay.
as regards the exterior of the building and replacement material?
Yeah, what you have is, again, it is a burgundy metal siding in accordance to the ordinance under 1379 under the Central Business Design Standards. It talks about that they do not like metal framing within those regions, providing that it doesn't, well, they do allow some metal. They just can't make up at least half of the building structure. And what you have before you, I don't have any calculations to say that it's less than 50%. I can only speculate based off of what I see exposed and have been around the building that it should be under the 50%. And again, the facade, they do prefer not to have metal within the Central Business District. I know about a year and a half ago, this property was not located in the Central Business, but council had requested that we revise that and move the Central Business Districts up to that area. So about a year and a half prior to this, they would not have come before you. But under item number 5 of 1379, it says preferred colors for exterior building finished are earth tone, creams, and pastels of earth tone. High intense primary colors and metallic colors may be utilized as a trim. So that's talking about the colors itself. And again, when you get down into the design, start with the facade, It does state in there that they prefer not to have metal or have more of it be metal than 50%. Less than 50% is what they do prefer.
Thank you, Mr. Nard. Some of the background even before that was during the project Destination 2014, when the Liberty Arena was built and restructured. We passed the ordinance for the central business district at that point that it could not be more than 50% metal, the exterior. Because the original design for the arena was slightly above, it was above 50%. And we had a long discussion about that, talked it over with the developer, and then came to this resolution that it could be up to 50% without fit. So as Mr. Nard explained, we then subsequently expanded the central business district at the request of the developer. It was on the corner of Westford and Severn. And so that brings that whole area, and not just that farmhouse that includes the area that we're talking about now. So we do have an ordinance on the books that says it can't be more than 50%. So,
Actually, if I could explain that, I think that was always the take that it can be. The ordinance actually says exterior building materials shall convey material siding is not permitted as the primary exterior building material, but metal may be used for accents, including awnings. So it's not necessarily 50%, but I believe when they were looking at that, that was the intent. As long as they don't do that, they wanted it kind of as metal can be used as accents, not basically the primary exterior building material.
okay. But I do recall with the Liberty Arena, a lot of discussion about how much metal siding they were going to have at the front of the building. And in any case, we don't have the dimensions to give us any guidance there. So we're going to have to decide tonight what course to take.
Understood. Mr. Markley, do you have any dimensions in relation to the percentage on the ordinance? Were you able to come up with anything? I know you had some conversations with Mr. Nard, but
I didn't have any, I don't have any, do I need to get there?
if you don't mind,
Okay.
just so everybody more formally in public can hear you. Thank you very much, Joe.
Okay, first off, we'd like to thank council for making time on our agenda for us tonight. In front of you, you should have a drawing that shows the highlighted area, which is going to be the portion of the building we're actually talking about. You don't have this?
I do not know.
Okay, I only brought one copy, but like my approach
Yeah, certainly.
first.
Yeah, certainly.
The highlighted portion is the part of the building that, quite frankly, we get blowing the existing siding off of it all the time. I was down here several times throughout the winter, just fastening back to the building, because it kept pushing it on. And that's why we decided to do something to the building other than what was there. Plus what was there was old, brittle. Now, as far as percentage goes, I don't think that comes anywhere near 50%, but you know, I estimated again without having numbers to back it up, 15 to 20% of that building, which is actually a garage area currently occupied by Jason Missoula and Missoula Auto Supply. The part of the building that faces the most to Third Street is stucco, painted stucco, and we're not touching any of that.
Based on the dimensions that are on that drawing, I just did the math, it's 24%.
Okay. You do have dimensions.
Yep.
We have linear dimensions. But assuming the building looks,
Yeah.
would be the same height.
Yeah, correct. It looks to be the same height, so whether you're looking at linear dimensions or even if you would use square footage, I would suspect that the percentage of the facing of the walls, it would be roughly the same. I would suspect so.
Also, the portion that faces Third Street is two huge overhead doors, as you can see by the drawing.
Mr. Nar, the other part of the ordinance that you usually reference, the awnings and everything else, were they to put this on, would that be in less than 50%? Would that be in line with the rest of the ordinance?
And again, I think that the conversation has always been they just didn't want it to be the primary focus. If you look at how the ordinance is actually written, it says metal siding is not permitted as the primary exterior building material. So as long as it's not the primary building material, which if you look like Mr. Markley's saying is the front stucco, I don't think it will be primarily metal. But again, I don't have the true calculations. And again, as long as it's not the primary exterior building material is metal, then at that point, the ordinance would allow that. They just preferred that metal siding is not used as the primary source within the central business district.
Mr. Nar, so this did not go before planning. What happens, so if we approve this tonight, and it goes before planning and they deny it or they have recommendations for changes. Excuse me, I cannot talk right now. Does this come back to us, or how would that mechanism work? If you can
Well,
inform us?
I'm assuming what would transpire if planning says no, they would just basically make the recommendation, hey, we feel that it is too much of a metal and they must bring it back before us as well as council for approval. If council approves it tonight, they do have the ability, once the permit is issued, to basically put that metal up there, but they have to be aware that if planning says, hey, we feel that it's too much, our recommendation is council should basically make them come back and redesign it or basically take away some of the metal. Then at that point, that would be a decision whether council would visit that or just say our approval process stands tonight. Because again, planning is merely a recommending body. They can't basically approve it. That's just a recommendation. And it would be up to council to make that decision. Well, we're going to adhere to planning's recommendation, or we're going to let our approval process that we made last week stand. So that's something we would be decided by council.
Right. Thank you, Gary. Norm, if we decided that we wanted to condition to do that based on planning, we need to amend this or anything work.
Yes, because if that's Gary's state, if planning does anything different than what council does tonight, they're going to make a recommendation. You can then reconsider.
Okay.
That you go to reconsider and put it back on the table.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what other members of council think. I mean, on the surface, it looks like it meets the intent of the ordinance. And I think that going through the process, we're a little bit backwards, but that's okay. I think planning will see this, and I think that gives both Mr. Nar, Mr. Markley some more time to, I think, finalize what this might look like. Have some more information for county planning. I would be okay passing this, and if there are things that are flagged by planning, revisiting that. So that's just my opinion. I'll welcome other comments or opinions from other members of the council.
I agree as well.
All right. Any other comments or questions from members of council on this one? All right. Hearing seeing none, Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Mr. Markley, thank you for coming. Mr. Nar, if you would work with Mr. Markley between now and the next planning commission, if there's things that you anticipate that they will need, make sure that they get them, and if there's other recommendations they have in there, we'll take a look at it again.
Okay.
Hey.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item 6. This is trying to if you would read that, please.
A resolution of the City of Williamsport authorizing the submission of an application for funding to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the redevelopment assistance capital grant fund in the amount of $1 million for the Pines Square improvement project.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Good evening, Skip.
Good evening. Good evening, President Yoder, members of council. We present to you tonight a resolution authorizing the submission of a redevelopment assistance capital program grant. RCAP is the acronym, in the amount of $1 million for the redevelopment and site improvements for the block of Pine Square located at 343 Pine Street. The subrecipient for this project is Nimbus LLC. This was reviewed by the city solicitor and presented to the finance committee, who passed it forward with a positive recommendation. Mr. and Mrs. Ecker are here, along with Jason Fitzgerald, their consultant, to answer any questions that came to the project specifically.
Thank you, Skip. Between the owner and Mr. Fitzgerald, is there anything you'd like to add, any comments you'd like to make before we open this up for discussion from the finance committee and amongst the full body council? Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
My name's Tony. This is my wife, Katie. We recently took over the extent of the 343 Pine Buildings and Pine Square. And in doing so, we were just looking to finish the project that my partners and I started 10 years ago. We privately funded this project to build 2 restaurants and a square down there in the center of Williamsport back in 2012. And 2 restaurants later, we quickly ran out of money, and have been operating in and out of the red and black for several years now. And now that my wife and I are the sole owners of the property, we're hoping to kind of finish the project that we started. There's still quite a few retail locations that have not been developed. One of the things that we discussed was this building was not here in 2012. This was the dilapidated parking garage, and at the time we made our entrance out on Pine Street. City made this beautiful back of the building a nice entrance. We'd like to finish completing an entrance on the back side of the building. The square was a building 330 or 347 at one point in time, collapsed the Will Fisher building. And we built a square on top of there. That square is anything but easily accessible. During the winter, the rocks shift and it becomes a bit of a hazard. So part of the grant money would be to resurface, add some drainage, and put pavers so it becomes much more wheelchair accessible for public. We also had planned to finish the staging area. Most people only sort of seen a band or two out there on Pine Square, and it is pretty much a couple pieces of plywood on top of an old planter that we built in a flash. Similarly, the stone house patio is kind of the same thing. Both of those items were part of the project. So most of the project is outdoor open space that we offer. Nutshell. It's not my strong suit, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. This was reviewed in finance. I'll turn it over to Ms. Neely.
And for the providing. And for the providing council positive recommendation. The gist of the discussion was mostly led by me, and it was just me trying to be certain. We had another little basic thing that is out in the works right now, which is called the Jump Factory, and I want to make certain. First off, we were protecting the interests of the city, and second, we were being fair to all those who are past the agency for development capital system. This the way the redevelopment capital systems program works is that you submit a pre-application. If that pre-application is approved, then you submit a full application. A full application, along with everything else involved in the redevelopment capital systems program, is a whole lot of paperwork. And you don't want to do the paperwork unless you're pretty sure you're getting the money. So this is the very first step. It will come back to us apparently October, November, and we hear for sure about the funding level. It will come back to us at that point as they're completing the full application. And at that point, we would expect to see the same restrictions and same requirements that we have with the Jump Factory package for this LLC as well. And just to remember, it seems to me, although Joe will have better reflection, we can discuss it further, we'll need a contract with Nimbus that Nimbus is probably much longer than the resolution that we're passing. And Nimbus will sign that as well as us. And then I believe we had a certain amount of finance in our targets as a security to be able to that Nimbus will be able to fund the project. The grant obviously is being administered by construction. So that will not fall into this draft. So also everything that is unhappable. Because it's a lot of paperwork, but yeah, we passed it as I said.
Thanks, Ms. Neely. Any other comments or questions from other members of council?
Just one, anytime one of our business owners wants to improve and expand their property, that's a win-win for the city. So, thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. This is exciting to see. It's beautiful. This will happen after I graduated when I moved back. So this is awesome. We frequent it as much as we can. I'm excited to see this continue. Just thank you for your investment and commitment to the city. We're grateful for people like you, and I hope to see you continue. Thank you. Mrs. Frank, on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Ryder.
Yes.
Ms. Neely.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Move on to item 5. Mrs. Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
An ordinance and transfer ordinance, arbor transfer ordinance number 1, final reading.
Is there a motion and a second? Second. Motion and a second. Mr. Pop, good evening, sir. I was going to say good afternoon.
Good evening, President, the Governor, members of council. Attached to one final reading is the transfer ordinance number 1. After the discussion at the last council meeting, the administration is proposing adding 4 lines in this transfer, 3 that are reducing budget line items and 1 increasing the budget line item to create a full budget for the compliance contract that was approved earlier this year. With that, we're proposing from the future projects of reserve account and the economic development, public works, and recreation categories, reductions of 15,000, 25,000, and 65,000 collectively. Reducing those for a total of 105,000 to increase the compliance line This proposed change was discussed with the finance. I'm not sure it was in recommendation, I think it was more just a discussion. And see what the administration proposes. So with that,
Thank you, Mr. Pavlak. Ms. Mealy, would you care to speak? I mean, it looks pretty cut and dry, and I would agree with this. I mean, it takes from everything fairly evenly, based on the allocations we have there. I mean, it's a clear need. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. It looks pretty straightforward. So,
Potential objection for some.
well, I certainly understand the potential objection, but, you know, the counter to that is, I mean, we've got that line item that has double in either of the others. In contingency, and as such, we've proportionally taken from that, so I think it's pretty fair. Norm, should we amend this, given that it's second reading, or we okay to, we should? Okay. Yep. I would make a motion then to amend the ordinance to change the economic development future project reserve line item reduced by $15,000, public works future projects reserve line item reduce it by $25,000, and reduce the future projects reserve in recreation by $65,000. And I would increase the compliance line item and the other miscellaneous category to, I would increase that by $105,000. Motion and second. Any discussion? This is Frank on the motion to amend.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Byer.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion to amend passes 5-0. Are there any other comments or questions on second reading? This is Frank on the motion of second reading.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Byer.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Joe, thank you for your work on this. And thank you to the finance committee for the reminder. We'll move to item 7. This is Frank.
Resolution to accept an assignment agreement between RVTA and the city of Williamsport.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Wonder, good evening, sir.
Good evening. This resolution is to authorize the transition of the 13C agreement for the ATU union. The transition to the authority, it's just a legal matter that can be taken care of. Currently, the city of Williamsport is the holder of the 13C agreement for the union. So basically, within the labor industry, if anything should happen to the union, everything falls back to the city. This will transfer all liability, etc., to RVTA. This was reviewed and approved by the RVTA board at the last meeting. Just some good housekeeping, I guess. Transfer oversight, that's what my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Wonder. It was reviewed and transit oversight. You know, it's fairly straightforward. There were a couple of things that came up in the committee meeting. The question of where we're at with information on the pension transfer, based on our conversation, that's going to be coming in September, October, I believe, once the transfer happens, and I think the actuary and the auditors are looking for that to finalize what that will look like. So we'll be getting that after the fact, which we figured was going to be the case, but we now know when, which is good. And then Ms. Mealy had a handful of good questions surrounding health insurance, and Ms. Steele Strength was kind enough to forward us some information that I think I forwarded along to all of you to answer some of those. If there's any particular questions related to any of those, Ms. Strength is here, Steele Strength is here to address any of those. But in a nutshell, it does look like both the RVTA and the city are likely going to benefit from that financially and from a service perspective, based on the detail that you provided us, and also that answered a lot of my questions that came up in the meeting. I can't speak for Liz, but it looks like it on the surface as well. So that was the nuts and bolts of the conversation on this item. I'll defer to Liz, who was with me in transfer center of the members of council. There's more.
Yeah. And one of the things that Jim brought during the, treasurer session was also tonight, which is that, the city self-funds the vast majority of our insurance, so that one of the concerns that I raised was whether, we were losing sort of buying power, when we about half of our insurance, well, not half, but less than that, we retired.
What a decent percentage.
Right, yeah, decent percentage of our insurance people, but because there's so much of it, self-funded, that's not really covered. Fewer days and so that's not, incredibly complex, and Mario, I certainly, I don't think I have any questions related to, the, insurance that are covered in the email. It is, it's good to know that we sort of covered all of those issues and it's taken care of, that's good. Given as quickly as this moves with the transition.
Any other comments or questions from members of council? Hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Biker,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We'll move to item 8.
Resolution to transfer all City of Williamsport DBA River Valley Transit RVT vehicles to River Valley Transit Authority RVTA.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion and a second, Mr. Winder.
This resolution authorizes the transmission of all vehicles, buses, support vehicles, et cetera, from the city of Williamsport DVA River Valley Transit over to RVTA. We're hoping it's a smooth transition. We're actually sending a fully directed to Harrisburg to, and all titles transferred there. The vehicles are paid for using state and federal funds. Are an essential need of the transit agency. It will also reduce the city's insurance claim or insurance policy drastically. We're not doing that. We're going to put those into transit authorities insurance policy, which is safe and high, self-funded insurance policy, so the RVTA will see significant savings there as well. It's also actually recommendation from transit.
Thank you, Mr. Winder. It was a pretty straightforward conversation. The only real thing we talked about was, the intricacies of the grant money that was used to pay for these, and it was all 100% grant money that paid for all these. These are RVTA vehicles or legacy RVT vehicles, RVTA vehicles. They belong there. It's pretty straightforward, cut and dry. So it's pretty quick and easy conversation and transit oversight. If there's any other, you had. Oh, yeah, we did talk about questions about property disposal. That was kind of in the same line though with the, thank you for the reminder of the pensions. I think there's a number of things that are being worked through, even to the degree of a potential forensic audit being looked at. And so it's looking like we will have what that's going to look like, I think, spring-ish of next year.
Correct.
It was at least 8 or 9 months, if not close to a year.
We looked to bring a resolution in July to transfer 1500 West Third Street, train transfer 1, train transfer 2, Church Street, which are fully identified with significant federal state money building those properties. There is some question on other property in the city, and that's what the council's all about. Definitely determine. Jill is researching the deeds on the properties I mentioned. Definitely funded with transit dollars. So that was a simple transition, but once it's a little complicated, at that point, the determination of the exchange of funds from RVTA to the city.
So again, thank you for the reminder. But yeah, aside from that, portion of the conversation, the vehicles were pretty cut. Any comments or questions from members of council? Hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Biker,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We'll move to item 9.
Resolution to transfer all funds from the city of Williamsport TBA, River Valley Transit to River Valley Transit Authority, RVTA.
Is there a motion and a second? Motion and a second, Mr. Winder.
This resolution is to transfer all funds from utility fund local, utility fund state, utility fund federal, RVT USA, RVT transit, and utility fund capital accounts. The one account that we would need money in would be utility fund disbursement account. Naturally, all these funds are state, federal, or local money. They are transferred out completely. RVTA would definitely need money so we can start July 1st. We have a $1.4 million line of credit. Should we run short on the funds, we are working diligently with PennDOT. They are transferring all grants over to RVTA. It's just a process due to everyone running through DOT grants and us still trying to hold RVT in DOT grants as we establish RVTA at the same time. Work to make that happen. Close out the grants June 30th, transfer to RVTA July 1st. So our goal is to smooth transition with funding and keep everything moving forward in a positive direction. Not necessarily run down with my credit right away. If we don't, so the RVTA is not paying interest on that money. Packet plan. And on June 30th, we will determine how many checks to the city will be issuing for RVTA. Make sure that money is put in disbursement accounts to cover everything that money. Moving forward, if there's any exchange of money, city will certainly issue check to the city to the disbursement accounts. And this was passed with a recommendation from Chairman as well.
Thank you, Mr. Winder. I guess it was pretty quick, easy, straightforward conversation, just like with the vehicles. I mean, this is all money that we get because of transit, whether it's federal, state, or even local monies from local matches, local shares. We wouldn't have it if it wasn't for RVT, and so it naturally needs to go over to RVTA. That's simply a financial transaction to transfer that money from city of Williamsport bank accounts to RVTA bank accounts. So that was the meat and basic conversation, Ms. Neely.
Yeah, I actually don't know that discussion. No one else has anything to add. There was no question that I asked earlier.
Yes, please.
Or perhaps two, I suppose, related to all of this. The first question relates to Mr. Winder, as part of the health insurance discussion, mentioned that RVT had migrated to a new provider and it's a substantial amount of money. And it would seem as though this might be an opportunity for us to be looking at other health plans. Is that something the administration is doing? Not by any stretch that we haven't had good luck with one or other, but it seems like it is a shop around every now.
Yeah, good evening. So that was something that I was asked to do when I was first hired, start shopping around. Over the year I've gotten acclimated with the transition of RVT, working on life insurance, dental. As I mentioned, the making now slowly migrating at least some of the plans directly through a higher separate benefit plan. There are savings as far as the premiums, but again, we get a return on any funds that we don't spend on that self-funding each year. So we do get those back. So ultimately, we do think it is in our best interest. We spoke to several brokers who would agree that it's in our best interest, and that is something that I'll be working on in the next year.
To shop around.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. This being so we're looking at it a year out. Got it. And then I guess my second question, just as we move through the divorce process here next week or so with RVT is the city currently purchasing services through RVT of any individual? And what's our plan for that from 30th?
The only person that would need a transition would be Mr. Black, which I believe you guys approved him as the director, or some form of IT.
Yeah.
That is the final employee. The only thing that we really need to bring in when we do is kind of the transition of the state inspection emissions, the city-owned vehicles. We need to do an MOU so that streets and parks can still bring those vehicles to RVTA to get that done until Mr. Livermore gets licensed inspection mechanic and emissions mechanic in place with the proper equipment. So probably a 6-month process for him.
That was a course of action. It's a
If you outsource it, you're about $85 per inspection. Going to RVTA, you're about $50. Because as a
Right,
government
well, that's
agency,
what I'm asking, so why should we run that?
because technically it's in the union contract under ASME, is that the lead mechanic is supposed to have a state inspection license. So you're already paying that employee. So with the inspection emissions stickers themselves, they're free of charge to government agencies. So your upfront cost is about $8,500. Okay. So that covers you basically 10 years what they expect the emissions should last. So then you're really not spending any more money. After that point, you're actually saving money.
I think that's.
Any other comments or questions from members of council? Here to see none, Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Biden.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Linder. We'll move to item 11, except for filing, we have the Public Works meeting minutes from April 26, 2022, the ERC meeting minutes from June 6, 2022, the Finance Committee meeting minutes from May 10th, 2022. Is there a motion in a second? So motion in a second. Is there any discussion, comments, or questions? Hearing seen none, Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mr. Biden.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 12, announcements. Our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be held on Thursday, July 7th, 7 p.m. here in Trade Transit 2. Our upcoming meetings, Tuesday, July 5th, 11:30 a.m. is Public Safety, 12 p.m. Planning Commission, 1 p.m. Finance Committee, 2:30 p.m. Public Works, 4 p.m. Transit Oversight. Wednesday, July 6th at 9 a.m. is the Economic Revitalization Committee, and next Thursday, July 7th at 7 p.m. is our regularly scheduled city council meeting. Moving to comments, and I'll open the floor for members of council, but I did want to have a couple of comments, and I know there's a few people here tonight that will probably speak related to this, but I think everybody's aware there was a pretty upsetting report that came out of Williamsport Area School District a couple of days ago, and I went back and forth on even making some comments, but I think it's a little bit appropriate. And I don't really have any formal prepare, but just a couple of points that I hope that everybody remembers and thinks through. And I say this as first and foremost, a father of an 8-month-old who's going to be a future millionaire. I say this as a taxpayer, but I say this as an elected official. So there's a victim here who I would applaud for coming forward. It does not happen enough. It takes a lot of bravery to do that. And we should all be there to support that individual because it does not get easier once it's public. As the news cycle hits, it can only get worse, I would suspect. So we need to be there for him. I'm praying for him, my family's praying for him. And I would encourage others, whether it's related to this incident or any other incident, come forward, speak up. There's resources out there, and we can't fix the problem if we don't know about it. So please speak up. We're here to help you. There's others that are involved in this, whether it's the accused, whether it's the immediate family of the accused, the victim, people that know these individuals that are friends, close family, that either didn't know or just are just blindsided. We need to keep them in our thoughts and prayers as well. I think we just had a little baby They took away from the mother, their mother and the child, and those both anywhere to go. I can't imagine. I would encourage anybody that is involved in the investigation, regardless if it's school districts or non-school district entities, be cooperative. Be there if somebody comes for questions, anything, be cooperative. Let's help them get to the bottom of this. I know that the school district is cooperating. That's great. I hope they continue to do that. And I think lastly, just with relation to the school district, wherever this goes, whatever happens, if somebody's convicted or not, there's going to be information that is gathered that, regardless of the outcome, I think can improve the experience for the youth in our community and the school district. I'm hoping that they will take action and make the experience better for you. Again, regardless of what happens out of that, there's going to be some data, some information that they can improve, whether it's processes, procedures, safety procedures, whatever it may be. I'm hoping they do that and are already working on that. So, again, just a couple of comments in relation to that. I thought it was appropriate. We'll look forward to other members of council. Are there any comments from the administration? Are there any comments from the public? If you would say your name, address, and you've got 3 minutes, and I would welcome you.
I'm Mike Colello, attorney in my office, 233 Market Street. You just said that you can't fix a problem if you don't know about it. That's why I'm here. In December of 2020, the law in Pennsylvania changed. Before that, police could search a vehicle if they had probable cause, if they believed they had probable cause to search it. After that, they needed to get a search warrant to search a vehicle. That entails seizing the vehicle, taking and towing it away. I understand there would be growing pains because the law has changed, but the fact is the city has not adopted very well to this. And I know this because I see it in problems with it. There's officers out there that use the threat of seizing your vehicle and the $400 you need to get it back as coercion to make you waive your rights to get a search of the vehicle. How do we know that? Because of doing things like swearing out a warrant to say, I'm going to seize this vehicle because I saw it once and the person wouldn't let me search the vehicle. They take the vehicle, they search the vehicle, they find nothing in the vehicle. They first won't let them search the vehicle, they walk a drug dog around the vehicle, say the drug dog hit, they seize the vehicle, take the vehicle, find no drugs in the vehicle. Now that's the beginning of your problems once they take your vehicle, because you can't get it back once they take your vehicle. No one knows how to get your car back. You call there, they tell you the officer's on vacation, you took your vehicle, I don't know what to do. I've had people come to me whose vehicles have been impounded for more than a month, and they've made call after call to get their vehicle back. I've had to write letters to the administration that are largely ignored initially. I had to file motions to return the property. Now they actually, when I write the letter, they'll get the person their car back. But you shouldn't have to go to an attorney to write a letter to get your car back. I think there's some reasonable steps to be taken by the city that will solve a lot of these problems. The first should be officers just shouldn't get search warrants to seize vehicles based upon they think they saw blunts in the vehicle. They should have a reasonable suspicion of a felony. It's a big deal to take somebody's car from them. So it should be a big crime that they're looking for. The second should be the owner immediately after they're done with the search, they can come get their car back. These are simple steps that can be taken. Finally, there's also this idea that they have to pay a lot of money to get their car back with cars. It's $400 or more. As I understand it, from some of the officers I talked to, they're supposed to tell people, Cochran doesn't have to tow your car. If you have AAA, or if you want to call another towing company, the towing company, your choice can tow your car. $400 is a lot for an in-city tow. And just finally, the drug task force puts their cars there as well. And you can impose these rules on them as far as how long the cars stay there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments from members of the public? If you would Name and address, please, and 3 minutes. Welcome, Mr. Sterling.
Good evening. Thank you for the time. My name is Jeff Sterling. I'm from Woodward Township. Woodward Township Supervisor, we're your neighbors to the west. You were copied on a letter within the last 48 hours of the Woodward Township Board of Supervisors to the Williamsport area School District Board of Directors. I have copies here if anyone needs one. If you don't already have it. I want to start out by saying that I am extremely honored to serve with 2 other fellow supervisors that had the courage to sign this letter and address this issue with the district head on. Of course, there's a lot of discussion out there as to the due process, innocent until proven guilty. That certainly does apply in this case, but with 30 felony counts, knowing law enforcement, as we all do, they generally don't move on this unless they have a case. Even the situation is troubling. I want to say to you that there are actually many victims in this situation. Beyond the direct victims, our community is a victim of this. We've made national news. Personally, I'd like to see national news on a good note, not on a bad note. I really would like you all as elected officials, and I'm speaking to you as elected officials, there needs to be a separation here in this conversation and discussion about the roles of elected officials as opposed to unelected administrators. It's important that we as elected officials unite our community and send a message of unity. And I would ask that you all consider your role for our community as a victim. You know, if you think about it, the only person that's not a victim in this situation is the perpetrator. I pray for his family of the perpetrator as well. This is a horrible thing. We've seen this happen before in other institutions. There's no way that we're not going to come out of this happy. People are going to be hurt. So I make it a passionate plea from the bottom of my heart to please, as elected officials, consider taking a stand. The Williamsport School Board, who are also elected officials, are going to need support. They're going to be faced with some very, very difficult decisions. And I think this whole scenario needs to be broken out into 3 groups when you look at this. Faculty and students, administration, and residents. Our role is to work with the residents. I really think we have an opportunity to lead here and let people know. People have entrusted us with their votes. I believe that makes us trustworthy people. And I believe that if you open your ears to your community, to your constituents, that they will come to you and they will share their frustrations and their fears. I can also tell you that I believe that faculty needs to be protected in this situation. This is a situation where mandated reporting may be forcing people to be scared. Now that this has been reported, there may be faculty members in our district that may say, I did see something, but I didn't think it was that bad at the time. Am I going to be in trouble because I'm a mandated reporter? But this thing is serious. It's very serious. There are going to be people lining up to try to convince that school board not to act, sweep this under the carpet. I think this is an opportunity to make our community much, much, much stronger. But it's got to start by a third-party investigation, district-wide. This is our opportunity to right this ship. We all know our own personal stories. I hope that we reach out and receive stories and issues from our constituents. And I hope we can take this opportunity to come out stronger on the other end. And I thank you for the time, and I would very much encourage you to do some personal reflection, soul searching, and consider making some strong decisions as a result of what's happening in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stroman. I would agree with specifically a couple things. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, speak up. If something has happened to you, please speak up. We want to help you. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. I think any of us would listen, to your point, Mr. Stroman. And, I think from a support perspective, it's very much appropriate. There's a number of elected officials that are faced with, figuring this out. On the school board, I think we need to support them also, and they have my support. I'm here to help them in any way that I can. I trust that all my colleagues up here, the administration are in agreement with that as well. So thank you. Any other comments from the public? Any comments from the news media? I don't think there's anybody here from them. All right, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.